Going live.
And welcome to Newcastle Borough Council's Cabinet meeting. Welcome Cabinet members in the room. Who we have today, Councillor Trevor Johnson, Portfolio Holder for Environment and Recycling, Councillor Jill Heason, Portfolio Holder for Community Safety and Wellbeing, Councillor Andy Fear for Strategic Planning, and Councillor Jill Waring for Leisure, Culture and Heritage, Deputy Leader Stephen Sweeney, and also Portfolio Holder for Finance, Town Centres and Growth. And I'm Council Leader Simon Tagg. Welcome to the officers joining us today, and also to some of our fellow councillors who are in the room and anybody that is watching online. If you'd like to see the agenda, if you go down to the bar underneath the video, you'll see a link to the agenda that we are following today. So on that agenda, first item is apologies. I don't have any apologies because all Cabinet members are here. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest for items on the agenda from Cabinet members? Not seeing any. Item 3 is minutes of the previous meeting, which were attached page 3 to 4 from our meeting of the 5th of October. Can we agree those as correct record? Agreed. All agreed. So to item 4, which is the first report for us today, is the Wallis Quarry odour issues update. And as we have done for the past couple of years now, probably been having a report about Wallis Quarry and the updates. I think this one is a bit of a landmark one in my view, because of the news of the council now has its abatement notice in place. And also, as per usual, the report goes through the various elements of this this issue that's affecting our residents, including monitoring information and also complaint data, and also a report on what the Environment Agency is up to as the regulator of the site. But as usual, I'm handing over to Martin, our Chief Executive, to give a update on Wallis Quarry.
Okay, thanks, Leader. Yeah, I think as the leader has pointed out, this is a slightly different report to the ones that we've taken so far, because it does include details of the very significant settlement agreement that was reached with Wallis Quarry Limited through the mediation process. And before I get to that, what I will do is just quickly run through where we are in terms of the metrics that you're used to seeing, and then I will come back to that agreement, if I may. So we've been routinely reporting into Cabinet 2 particular strands of information that do actually closely align and correlate. One is the complaints that have been raised with the council and the Environment Agency about odours relating to the Wallis Quarry site on a weekly basis. And over the last year or so, those have been on a downward trajectory. So through September, the complaints coming into ourselves have been sort of below 20 a week, sort of ranging from 9 to 14 complaints a week to ourselves. The Environment Agency typically get more, usually sort of 2 to 3 times the number that we have. And there will be a degree of overlap between those. The figures for the first week of October for our complaint data is slightly up. I think there's around about something in excess of 30 complaints there. But overall, that trajectory is a good downward trend and has been fairly stable really since July. In terms of the air quality monitoring stations, we've got 4 stations that are located, and they're jointly funded by the Environment Agency, the County Council and ourselves. And again, we've reported on a weekly basis the readings from those stations, and the reading that we report is the percentage of time that the hydrogen sulfide levels measured at those stations is above the World Health Organization's odor annoyance guidance level, which is 7 micrograms per meter cubed over a 30-minute average. And again, in line with the complaint data, the percentage of time that there have been exceedances of that annoyance threshold has been coming steadily down over the summertime. And for 3 of the units, it's been largely around 0. And then we've had the unit that's located in Gallingale, which has been slower to reach 0. It has had some zeros, but typically is somewhere around less than 5% of the time. And the additional week that we don't have here, which is the last week, continues with that downward trend, and even Gallingale down slightly from the last week that's reported there. So both the complaint picture and the hydrogen sulfide pictures is showing an improved situation there. Members will remember that in August last year, that's August 21, the council served an abatement notice against Wally's Quarry Limited in relation to a statutory nuisance that the council had identified in relation to the odours. And that abatement notice was required Wally's Quarry Limited to abate the nuisance and to prevent a reoccurrence of the nuisance, and allowed a 5-month window for that to happen. The Wally's Quarry Limited then appealed that, and that's effectively stopped the clock, and we went into a very detailed legal process that was leading up to an appeal that would have been scheduled to start at the end of this month, with 4 weeks allocated to that in the Magistrates' Court in Newcastle. One of the things that's always encouraged, particularly with complex matters like this, is what's called alternative dispute resolution. So the opportunity for parties to settle their dispute without necessarily tying up all of the court time, but nonetheless reaching a legally binding settlement. And one of the routes to that is through mediation. So in September, the council and Wally's Quarry Limited went into a mediation process that was overseen by a retired Supreme Court judge and expert in environmental law. He guided this process, which has led us to a position where we're able to get a settlement agreement and draw that particular legal process to a close. So paragraph 2.5 of the report sets out the details of this. And I guess the first of these is probably one of the most significant for the council, which is that Wally's Quarry Limited have withdrawn their appeal, which means that the council's objective of having a legally enforceable abatement notice in place has been achieved. If we'd gone through the entire court process and won, this is essentially what we would have got, which is that abatement notice. Now, there's been one minor amendment to the abatement notice, which is the abatement notice that we served drew a boundary that had been carefully modelled as to within which the nuisance needed to be abated. But within that area was the landfill site itself. Now, it's not, the statutory nuisance needs to be off-site. So the minor amendment that we've agreed to is to actually exclude the site itself from the abatement notice. So that means that odours that arise on the site and don't extend off the site don't come under this abatement notice. And that was really sort of just putting right a technical issue with the abatement notice. We then get into what I would describe as sort of the added value that we've been able to secure through the through the mediation process. And this is really about resetting the relationship and resetting the information flows between the operator and ourselves as a council. So there has been agreement reached that we've identified as a council on the back of our expert advice that the various plans, such as the phasing and capping plan and the gas management plan that Wally's Quarry Limited have in place at the moment, that those represent best practical means. So those are, if you like, up to sort of the current best practice in the industry. But linked to that is then a commitment, a commitment, I guess, by Wally's Quarry Limited to make sure that those plans are implemented and to, through dialogue with us, demonstrate ongoing compliance with and application of those plans. So we also recognise in the agreement that what constitutes best practical means changes over time. So as the landform of the landfill changes, what may constitute best practical means may change. It will change with meteorological conditions. Members will be well aware that the odour levels differ in the heat of summer to the to sort of very cold, still periods, and of course will also potentially can change over time. So there's a requirement, therefore, to keep that best practical means under review and make sure that best practice is in place at all times. So the agreement also commits the council and Wally's Quarry Limited to engage constructively and in good faith with each other, and commits the operator to be sharing information with the council about these best practical means plans, and to allow council officers access to the site to be able to inspect what's happening from time to time there. And it also commits Wally's Quarry Limited to specific measures around community engagement. So publishing its plans on its website, providing advance notification to the community if there are issues that may give rise to odours, and refreshing the liaison committee, and of course publishing its meetings online. And then the final element of the agreement is to do with costs. So Wally's Quarry Limited have agreed to contribute £400,000 towards the council's legal costs in respect of the appeal, and also £60,000 towards the ongoing monitoring of hydrogen sulfide levels in the community, because it's recognised by the council that maintaining community confidence in this, the community got very used to seeing the monitoring data. So actually carrying that forward for a time will actually be useful. So this gives us the abatement notice that we set out to achieve in August 2021, and it provides a platform for us to work with Wally's Quarry Limited to understand issues on site if any arise, to maintain a dialogue about what's happening in terms of the practices being adopted there. But it also provides us with a platform that, should there be a future reoccurrence of statutory nuisance, we then have the legal abatement notice in place that would allow us to take enforcement action. Remind members that if we ever did get to that position, we would first need to secure Secretary of State's approval to take further action, because this is a site where the Environment Agency is the principal regulator. They have the primary legislation, gives them the key enforcement role in terms of the environmental permit that the site operates under. So hopefully members will agree this has been a good outcome all round. There should be real benefits to this from the community, for the community, and myself and our head of regulatory services, Nesta Barker, will be working forthwith in order to bring to bear both the letter of the agreement, but also the spirit of the agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Martin and myself took this to scrutiny last Thursday for members to ask detailed questions of Martin. There was a fair few questions from that. And at that meeting, I welcome this. And I think it's great that our abatement notice is in place and that the clock is now ticking on that 5 months as well. And, accepting the improvement that we've already seen, as Martin has pointed out in the data for monitoring and for complaints. I think it starts us off on a process here of working more closely together with the operator to ensure this odour does not continue to cause those problems which it has done in the past. I think for me, the deal which has been struck here allows information to be shared by Wallis Quarry on the site issues, which is important, that officers can access and inspect the site from time to time, which I think is also important for our residents. And also they're going to publish their operational plans and give advance notice of any issues on site that may cause an odour, an early warning system, which I think is really important, so that people know from time to time there may need to be works on there to actually improve the overall picture that may lead to a very short-term odour issue. In the past, these things have just happened and people have obviously reacted to the odours they're smelling. But if they know it's within a programme of improvement, I think that's a lot better for people to actually live with on a short period. I think also that commitment from the operator to refresh the liaison committee, and also I hope refresh its relationship with the local community as well, so that it can work closely with not only the local councillors but also with the leaders in the community. And really important way of doing that and transparency is that those liaison meetings are available to be viewed by the public as well, which is really important. And then finally, I think from me is that for opening it up to cabinet members is the financial payback which we're going to get for this, which is the 400k towards the council's costs. Everybody will remember that we set aside, £1 million to fight this case, and we've had to fight the appeal. And it's quite right that we've got a substantial amount of those costs back, and also that the operator is now committed to put 60k towards future monitoring. And that is a sign that from the operator and from ourselves that ongoing monitoring is the key to this, to ensure that those odours are kept under control. So, and I think I'd just also like to thank Martin particularly for his leadership from the officer side on this, and also for Nesta and the team, and also the legal team that worked on this to get this result, and puts us on a course now which hopefully will be stopping that stink for good. And we have levers in place to manoeuvre if necessary to ensure that happens. But open it up now to cabinet members. Councillor Stephen Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I don't want to just sort of reiterate everything you've just said, which I totally absolutely agree with, especially praising the Chief Exec and Nesta and the legal team for the work they've done. But these key elements of the settlement agreement, the one that jumps out at me, and I think you've sort of alluded to this, is that the agreement commits the council and Wallis Quarry to engage constructively and in good faith with one another, and for Wallis Quarry Limited to share information with the council relating to best practical means, and for council officers to have access to inspect the site from time to time. This will allow the council to maintain an understanding as to whether the policies, procedures and practices adopted for Wallis Quarry remain consistent with the BPM over time. Well, that to me is the most important part of this, and it's just a shame really that we've had to go this far to extract what appears to me to be a perfectly obvious, sensible, let's all work together to sort this out, rather than it's nothing to do with us. That's just it's such a transparently logical sort of conclusion that this report gives us. It's just a shame I had to go this far, really. Thank you.
Andy.
Thank you very much. No, I too very much welcome this. I think, when we look at this report, the first bullet point under 2.5, this is the best enforcement outcome that would have been possible to achieve in court. And if we combine that with the final paragraph in 2.6, these outcomes are more far-reaching than what the council would have been able to achieve from simply defending an abatement motion at trial. I think that shows that we've been vindicated in persisting with this, and it did take a degree of courage to do that. I would like to thank our officers for their doggedness in persisting with this, and we've been proved to be right. We now have the tools in the box to make sure that this can't go on in the way it's been allowed to go on in the past. I think also, as Councillor Stephen Sweeney said, this commitment to work with the community. Wallace Quarry Limited have a lot of ground to make up with the community. Hopefully this will be the foundation upon which they can build in that regard. But I think this is very welcome. It takes us forward. It's also nice to see those figures that we're usually having. Complaint figures now have fallen to even single figures for 1 week in September, I note to ourselves. Complaints to the Environment Agency are down to double figures. We look towards the beginning of the year, there was 1 in 4 figures, for heaven's sake. So the trajectory is the right way round. The important thing, of course, and I'm sure we're all determined about this, is that this isn't the end of the story. There's still a problem there. We hope that it won't increase again. And there was a little bit of a worry there, wasn't there, from what we heard from Martin? But if it does increase, we now do have the tools in our box to see these things off. So I think this is very much to be welcomed.
Thank you, Andy. Jill.
Thank you, Leader. I just want to thank everyone for all the work that they've done so far on this. It's been on the top of the agenda for so long now, and it's a great thing that we're actually getting somewhere with the abatement notice, and hopefully it will improve the lives of the people who, particularly the ones that live nearest to it, and hopefully they will get some peace in the future with this. But like Andy says, it's not the end yet, but we've done really well so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Not seen any more cabinet members that want to speak. So I've been notified by Councillor Brown that she would like to I think, ask a question as well as make a comment. But if you'd like to come and sit at the table, though, we found a chair for you there, and then press the mic, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to ask some questions. And thank you very much to Martin Hamilton. I particularly welcome the detail in his report and the mention of building community confidence. My questions are around things that residents have brought up to me in the time we've had to digest the information since we received the news on the 6th of October. They're threefold, really, and the first one relates to what could be described as reporting fatigue and the difficulties of reporting at times and making reporting accessible. For example, yesterday I was at Gardener's Garden Centre and the smell was quite overpowering at the rear of the building. So I filled in a report, and I was disappointed that because I didn't use a colon in the 24-hour time, it kept throwing the report back. And I had to do it several times before it actually went through. And I hope that won't deter residents from reporting. So in relation to reporting, is there a number that would act as a trigger point for the council to seek permission from the Secretary of State for the environmental agency to be prosecuted? That's the first part of the question. Secondly, in relation to finance, and we are told that 60,000 is available for monitoring, 400,000 towards legal cost, and we're told that's a significant proportion, but we'd like to know specifically what is that proportion as a percentage, particularly taking into account officers' time. And finally, the amendment to the abatement notice excludes the site itself, creating a donut-shaped exclusion zone. And what assurances do we have that odours can be kept on site?
Thank you, Councillor Brown. If you could just turn your mic off as well when you return to your seat, that'd be great. And Martin, over to you.
Yeah, great, thanks. Okay, so those are really good questions. What I'll do, I'll take them in reverse order, if I may. In terms of the donut effect, the requirement under the environmental permit is that that's controlled by the Environment Agency, is that there shall be no odours off-site which are at a level that would cause pollution and annoyance. So, and the same really for ourselves in terms of statutory nuisance. Statutory nuisance, which is the thing that we can take abatement notice regarding. So it's not just there's a smell, it needs to be a smell that is actually at a particular level. So one of the criteria that we run through, I have to say I've not got a note on this, so let's just test myself, is called FIDAL, which looks at the frequency of occurrence, the intensity, the duration, the offensiveness, and the location of the odor. So, and if you take the location, for example, clearly there is a more of a problem with a long-term offensive odor in a place where people live than there is an offensive odor somewhere where people don't live. So all of the rules and regulations around this are about Wally's Quarry Limited having a series of plans, which includes an odor management plan, to prevent odors from getting off site at a level that would trigger statutory nuisance or annoyance. So what we have with the experts that we employed as part of the legal process, we have accepted that the current odor management plan is a good plan and represents best practical means when viewed alongside the other plans that are there, such as phasing and capping and the gas management plan, etc. Because members will have heard me talk about how the solution to this is actually relatively simplistic in terms of it's about containing the gas within the site, it's about extracting the gas from the site and then destroying the gas to create electricity. So it's the contain, capture, destroy process. So we're content that those strategies represent best practical means, and therefore the best opportunity for Wally's to keep the odors on site. And the process that we have in place now allows us to monitor Wally's effectiveness at achieving that and making sure that the plans that they have in place are that they comply with them. So the donut effect of the abatement notice, I don't think anyone should see that as a significant concession in any way. That is just recognizing the legal reality that an odor on site isn't a statutory nuisance and isn't something that could be prosecuted under this process. In terms of the percentage of costs, I can provide, I'll get some more sort of full information on that to share. So we can happily do that. In terms of the reporting fatigue, and certainly ourselves and the Environment Agency have both got well-established processes for residents to report odours. Now, the question was, is there a number of odours that would lead us to, a number of complaints that would actually lead us to take action? And if I come back to that FIDAL process that we go through in terms of assessing whether there's statutory nuisance, first thing we need to do when there are complaints coming in is actually verify those complaints. So see if we can witness the odours, etc. So where there are more reports, clearly that increases the sort of, if you like, the F for frequency in that FIDAL process. But there is also an exercise that we now need to go through in terms of when there is a problem being reported to us in the community, being able to have that dialogue with the operator about what may have given rise to that. Are we able to verify that the odour's there, etc.? So we wouldn't be looking at a particular number. We certainly wouldn't want to be in a position where we were acting purely on complaint numbers. It needs to be on complaints that are verified, that we can triangulate against our Jerome data, against the monitoring data, against the knowledge of what we have happening on site, and critically, as we go forward, testing it against that that measure of best practical means. Best practical means is a critical line of defence in terms of prosecution, and the place that no regulator wants to be in is establishing in court that best practical means are in place and therefore they're not able to prosecute. So actually being able to triangulate all of the information that we gather against that best practice and include in that our assessment of best practical means is important. So I wouldn't say there isn't a particular number that we would hang our hat on and say, if there was this level of complaints, we would do something particular. We're going into a process now, which is a dynamic process where we will just be routinely engaging with the operator about what's happening on site, about the feedback from the community, etc. And the most important thing here is that the odour is abated and that we keep faithful to that. There's a commitment from Wally's Quarry to do that through this process. So it would really only be if all these things break down and we get a consistent problem, we're then in a position to move forward.
Thank you, Martin. I think it's all about being in that good position, isn't it? If we need to be to move forward, I think refining, the abatement notice is along the lines, as Martin has said, is a sensible move, and also having that sort of almost local regulatory framework now wrapped around the landfill is really important as well. More information and background on this can be found on the council's YouTube channel, where the meeting from last Thursday was actually recorded and is on there. Martin went into a lot more detail in a presentation to members and then 2 questions. That's worth looking at. That's available on the council's YouTube site. Just one last thing I would like to say before we move on. I think obviously we haven't talked about the Environment Agency much in this, but I think they still have a massive role to play. There are many issues. All of us within this room have had issues with the way the Environment Agency have regulated this site. And we will be having later in November a local meeting with the EA, which we've been pressing for around this cabinet table so there'll be a bit of a member oversight, political oversight of the EA. Our MP will be invited to that, the leader of the county council, myself, hopefully the Police and Crime Commissioner as well, to talk about all the issues around that still remain about Wally's Quarry. But I think for this report for us today, which we were asked to note, I'd also like to say that we note and welcome it in our recommendation on this, because I think it's a positive report, probably the most positive one we've had from the relationship of the monitoring data and the complaints data being so low for such a long period, and also the resolution so far of getting the abatement notice in place and that appeal withdrawn and all the other things that we talked about that hang on that. I think we welcome this update as well. So all agreed? Thank you. Moving then to item 5, which is part of 2 items on our town deals. First one is on the Newcastle town deal, which we bring a progress report today. I think it's really pleasing that we've obviously began to start to get things in place to deliver on that £23 million inward investment from the government. We just got one outstanding bid to go in, which is for the Astley Centre of Circus. But what we're asked today is to note the progress and to receive the updates in the report, and that obviously the director, in consultation with our portfolio, to complete the funding agreements and such external partners to be brought into place to deliver the projects. And for me, these are fantastic proposals which we've been working on over the past 18 months or so, ourselves and key partners through the Town Deal Board, which is represented on the Newcastle one by Councillor Sweeney. I'm sure he'll come in and speak in a minute. And, some of those developments that we're going to bring in place for the town, the digital connectivity, the sustainable transport, are going to see real benefits for the town, as well as the work on the finally delivering the Zanzibar site, and also improving other areas within the town with cycle routes and pedestrian routes, building on what we've already done with the advanced town deal money, which was bringing the subway system up to scratch, particularly the Sunken roundabout, which is now an award-winning roundabout in Britain in Bloom, which we should note. And also tying into all the other things we're doing with the new car park, a new multi-storey car park via the Future High Streets Fund, freeing up the Midway for future development as well, that ageing embarrassing car park for us, which the council over many decades has spent so much money on, that we're now going to see that is a money pit which we could put money into forever, is going to be demolished and brought forward as part of the plans going forward. So I think exciting time for the town, Future High Streets Fund, and this for our town, not only for the town centre, but the schemes in the town deal for the wider area in Nutton, in Chesterton, and so on. It shows that we can really take this town forward with the government funding and bring some benefit for the town. So I'll ask Steve to come in now.
No, again, I agree with what you're saying. I think the one that I really like, is only the minor one, is the award-winning Grosvenor roundabout. You wouldn't have said that a couple of years ago, would you? But it's now an award-winning in Bloom. But no, I think it's exciting times for the time, and to see what I know is Ritz is coming down was the start of all this, wasn't it, really? And it just a sign of things to come. I think it's really exciting. I think it's a chance to take our town forward, and I absolutely totally support it. Thank you.
Comments, Andy?
No, well, again, I like Steve. This is a nice positive report. It's good to see areas like, I mean, I know it as Zanzibar, but it's been there. It's been derelict for a long time. It's nice to see that this important welcome into our town, so to speak, this is the way people come in, is going to not look like that anymore, that we've got something going on there. I hope we can keep the old painted sign. The peas and all the rest of it don't give me much entertainment as I come home at night. But let's hope that can happen. Otherwise, I mean, the Midway, I think, also is very important. Another gateway in a way. The other side of our town centre has this enormous sort of concrete rampart. So when we redevelop that, I think we've got a really good chance to have a much more welcoming side to the town if it's developed in a sympathetic way. So I look very much forward to those plans coming forward and being able to take part in them.
Thank you, Andy. Any other comments from the Newcastle town deal? No? Okay, but I've got a comment and a question from a local councillor for the town, Councillor Brocky. If you want to take the seat where Councillor Brown did and press the mic, and then that'll be great. Over to you.
At section 2.2, which suggests that the projects, the eight projects that have been approved, which are clearly very interesting and very creative, it is anticipated that the money will be received, in Q3. But the bit that concerned me was the council and chair of the town deal board have received confirmation that these 8 projects have been approved to progress to delivery, subject to a final finance check. Now, obviously, this has to be built into any future planning, so I'm not suggesting there's anything deliberately obstructive about that, but a final finance check at the moment could be very difficult to predict, because in view of the privations experienced by many of our partners, including delivery via partner agencies for the project of the sustainable transport, within a matter of weeks and certainly months, there have been significant suggestions that the resources available to our partners and the financial viability of our partners might be significantly reduced in the face of a harsh winter to come, and probably within the medium term. My question, if it is a question rather than a comment, is that at what point will the final finance check, upon which all this is conditional, be presented to council via the various finance bodies and subcommittees, and in what form? And have we got some idea of a timeline set against what the original timeline was, and very, very virtuous it was too? When are we going to get an updated account of what is likely to be spent in excess of what was planned to be spent, and taking into account the financial stability of our partner agencies? Thank you.
Thank you. If you could turn your light off and return to the seat, that's great. Thank you for that comment and question. I think when it comes to we're all in a world now where obviously things are changing very quickly. I think for us, for the town deals, we've got vast majority of our business cases into government that have been signed off. And I think that those important financial checks need to take place. And I think also internally here at the council, but also with our partners also. I mean, we've worked very closely through the Town Deal Board that Steve is a member of to ensure that, you know, our partners are signed up to this. And I think, you know, the 23.5 million, as far as I'm concerned, pending the last bid going in for the Astley Centre of Circus, is something which our government has committed to give us the money for. But I just wondered if Sarah wanted to comment on anything about the final sort of checks of this. I must say also, we send a report to every FAPS scrutiny meeting, which has an update on from Simon Mack, our officer, and any issues to do with finance, which is the FAPS as the finance committee, would be going to there also for scrutiny as well. So just to say that. But Sarah, anything to add on the?
Just an agreement, really. Obviously, in light of all the changes that are happening at the moment with interest rates, etc., we are keeping a close eye on all the projects within the Town Deal Fund, both Newcastle Kidsgrove and the Future High Street Fund. And there will be affordability reviews as we go along for ourselves and our partners for all those projects. So and at any point, if anything changes, then that will be reported back, obviously, as it takes place. So thank you.
And one last thing I'd just like to say as well is that after the last meeting of Cabinet, where we looked at the MTFS, Stephen Sweeney did write to the government about raising two issues. One was the inflationary impact on our services, and the other one was the inflationary impact of and rises in interest rates on the town deal monies. So that's gone into government. Not sure who it went to now, but it went to the previous Chancellor. So I think what we will do on the back of this, and the very constructive comment by Councillor Brockie, is I think you should resend that to the new Chancellor, Steve, just to ensure he's got it on his in tray as well. So the new Chancellor and the Chancellor for this week. So thank you for that. Any other comments on this item to do with Newcastle Town Deal? So we've got the recommendations before us, which I touched on earlier, and the last one was that a future report on the Astley Centre of Circus is considered by Cabinet at the appropriate time, and I think we're moving in the right direction on that for that to come sooner rather than later. So let's get that bid in as well. But those are the recommendations. All agreed? Thank you. Item 6 is the Newcastle is the Kidsgrove Town Deal update, which is a sister paper to the one we've just looked at. And I think for this one, £16.9 million of government funding along those objectives which we set out for Kidsgrove, which are on enhancing enterprise in Kidsgrove to drive growth and opportunity, a greater connectivity in the town centre, linking together assets and the town's heritage, which will increase footfall into Kidsgrove, and easy accessible leisure facilities to the community that will enable improvement to health and well-being. So I think we've already started to deliver on that with using some of that town deal money to bring Kidsgrove Sports Centre back into use. We've got a report on that coming next. Chatterley Valley, a job creation site, we've already committed £3.7 million of town deal money into that, along with the county council's contribution of over 3.5 million into that project. So we are pressing ahead with that, full steam ahead. Those 1,700 jobs that can be created for people of Kidsgrove and the rest of the north of the borough, and bringing in that private sector investment of £60 million on top of it. We've got plans for Kidsgrove railway station. We've got plans for canal improvements, all on that philosophy of improving the centre of Kidsgrove and also enhancing the heritage with the Harecastle Tunnel, etc., and green routes through to the town centre and hopefully through to the sports centre as well for walking and cycling. So I think it's a very exciting agenda which we've been pursuing and we're delivering already on. We've made use of the advanced town deal monies, which you've seen with the pump track and the 3G AstroTurfs as well. And we've got recommendations before us that we note the progress. And we also note the completion of the Kidsgrove Sports Centre project, which we've got a paper on next. We note the progress on Chatterley Valley. We also give permission for the director, in consultation with the portfolio holder, to complete the grant funding arrangements with Network Rail, East Midlands Railways and the Canals and River Trust to enable us to progress those projects. And that the progress of the shared hub is noted and work continues with Kidsgrove Town Council and other partners to deliver that project. So I'd just like to say on that, there's a good collaborative working taking place between Kidsgrove Town Council and the Borough Council now. I think we can really make the best use of that shared service hub as per the philosophy in the town deal to enhance the Kidsgrove Town Centre. And then finally, we receive a further report on the delivery of the shared hub at a future meeting. But opening it up to questions and comments now. First of all, bring in Jill Waring, who's also obviously a Kidsgrove councillor, for comments.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I welcome the update and I'm very pleased that all the projects have been approved so the public can now see the progress that has been made so far. I can't say how pleased I am that the sports centre is open. It's been open for a while now. It's a fantastic facility. I remember when it first opened, I remember when it closed, and it's reopened again, and it's just fantastic. It's brilliant. I've noted that I've seen that the work started at Chatterley Valley, and I know that the other projects are due to start soon. I think overall it's an absolutely wonderful thing that's happening in Kidsgrove. It's more than has ever happened in my lifetime, and I keep saying that, and I just couldn't be more pleased. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen.
Yeah, thank you for that. Did you not meet Paul at Kidsgrove, Paul, Jill? Is that where? Oh, there you go. So great things happen there, don't they? Tremendous stuff. No, I think it is super. The highlight for me is the Chatterley Valley, which I banged on about at the County Council last week, and I'll say it again. It's £3.6 million we put into this, and it's up to 1,700 new jobs, good high quality jobs in an area that's just on the border of Kidsgrove, and it's fantastic. But the whole thing, I always keep on about these canals. There's a lot of interesting canals now, and improving the walkways and the lighting and everything for people to go from the canal into the town centre. Well, there you go. There's people who want food, people there's something to eat. I think it's really exciting. I won't talk about Kidsgrove Sports Centre because then we've got reports on that in a bit. I want to make a person, but no, fantastic, excellent. Thank you.
Andy.
Thanks very much. Yep, just like Jill, I can confirm that the Chatterley development is going ahead. I pass it now going to work pretty much every day. And it is, I wonder to see, I mean, that this was described when I first came onto the council a long time ago as a development jewel in the crown. It's taken a long time to cut and polish this jewel, but that's certainly happening now. And it's great to see those extra jobs. I can't see how anyone could be remotely opposed to this development. It's manifestly a good thing, bringing employment where it's needed. Again, I go through Kidsgrove regularly on the railway, so I'm also noticing the way that the railway station is coming on. I also notice the interest the community have taken in the railway station, actually, working on there and such like. I agree with Councillor Sweeney that people are interested in canals. We've got historic things at the Hare Castle, the Brindley Tunnel. And again, isn't it great to see all that coming online just as the borough is going to celebrate its 850th? It's nice to see that sort of conversions of bits and pieces.
Thank you, Andy. Any other comments from cabinet members? No? Okay. I think just to wrap this item up, I think again, when we talked with Newcastle Town Deal, we talked about the Town Deal board, and I think I represent the council on the Town Deal board, and I think the Kidsgrove Town Deal board. And I think, some really willing partners that have really stepped up in Kidsgrove, whether it's the town council, whether it's Aspire, who we're working closely with on the hub, or whether it's the community group for the sports centre, who were represented on there and delivered that project and now running it for us. I think it's a real shows partnership working together. I think the caveats we just had over the one in the town about the inflation costs and the interest rate costs have to be taken with this one as well. And what I'm sure Sarah's working very closely, on that to ensure we do deliver these projects. And I think the first part of that was that delivery of Kidsgrove Sports Centre, which we're coming on to in a minute. And that just shows we can deliver, as well as the pump track, as well as the pitches as well in the town as well by the school for the football pitches. So recommendations I've read out before, so I won't read them out again. Do we all agree them? Okay, thank you. Moving on then to item number 7, which has been trailed already in the previous item, is that final account for Kidsgrove Sports Centre. And I'm really pleased that today we're signing off the council's contribution to this project, because it was made a clear priority for this administration when it came in 2017 was to reverse the closure, refurb and reopen with the community group running it, and we've managed to achieve that. And to see that refurbished centre with its top quality finishing and facilities and running that local way by the local community is just great to see. And I'm sure it will go from strength to strength, as it seems to be doing since it opened in July. I mean, the council's financial investment to the centre was in the end £7.75 million, and that included almost £3 million of town deal funding and capital funding from this council of £4.326 million, which was a lot less than what we originally thought was going to happen when we faced with this big task of refurb and reopen of the centre after it closed in 2017. And we mustn't forget the Staffordshire County Council contribution of £355,000 initially, which was put into it, and also the Sport England contribution of £205,000, and also that the Community Interest Group have contributed 21,000. And I already have had the chairman of the community group contacting me to say, you don't mention all the other stuff we put into that, so I'll mention it now. They've paid for many things that go in there which have contributed to this brilliant facility, and in a whole have brought in over £300,000 from external sources into this project. And then throughout the project, we've had Wilmot Dixon obviously working on that and delivering that for us. And there is a report from them showing some of the social value that's been got from this. And I won't go through that in detail. It's there to be read, but you can see that we have had some social value from having that contractor under the framework which we set off. And I think we really must try, and we will try to replicate that in the schemes that we've got in the town deals we've just been talking about. And that is through local employment opportunities, local spend, local contractors, being able to contract for this work, and also those advice sessions for local school people, school children, and through careers fairs, and also money that's been put into Red Street Community Centre for their outdoor space for volunteers, etc. So I think we can see the community impact of this, and we see it every day when people use the sports centre, that it's run by a community with a lot of volunteers involved, and it's a brilliant way to bring this facility back into use. So that report outlines all of that, and it also been asked to approve the adjustment to the capital programme reflects the final account figure with the initial cost of £129,000, just over £129,000. Into the project, which we need to put in there. But I think on a project of £7.7 million, I think that is a small figure for what we have actually achieved, which is the reopening of the centre. And I will leave the local ward member to talk about it more and hand over to you, Jill.
We keep saying what a fantastic facility it is for Kids Grove. And I think how it was actually brought back is an excellent example of how funding can be received from different areas and bring about an overall completion of a project. It's not noted in the report, but Kidsgrove Town Council also provided a grant of £70,000 towards equipment, and unfortunately that was despite opposition from a number of councillors, but we were pleased to get it through in the end. And I'm just very pleased with what's been achieved overall, showing how communities and councils can work together to benefit the whole of the community of Kidsgrove. It's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Stephen.
Yeah, again, Jill, I can't fail to agree with you. The most interesting point to me is that the Newcastle Borough Council Capital Programme contributed £4.326 million. What have we got for that? We've got a sports hall, we've got a gym, we've got a swimming pool with, I believe, a 25-year lifespan. I think we've got the biggest sport hall. Certainly in North Staffordshire, it might be in all of Staffordshire. It's massive. All of Staffordshire, it's a massive hall, all for £4.326 million from the Borough Council's coffers. I think it's a fantastic achievement. Thank you.
Andy.
Thanks very much. Again, another splendid report, and I think, an ideal demonstration, as you said when introducing this report, but there was a clear mandate for this, and I think this demonstrates that this administration delivers on its promises. We were asked to do this, we've done it, we've not dithered or delayed, and it's been done. The other nice thing about it, as Jill has said, is the coming together of so many groups to deliver something for the whole community. It's a little bit disappointing to hear about the bump, about the equipment funding and such like, but then again, of course, as they say, from where I come from, there's nought so queer as folk, and it's nice to know that there's a happy ending to this story.
Thank you, Andy. Jill.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what my fellow councillors have said, but also I used to use the Kids Grove Sports Centre when it was originally open. It was a sad loss when it closed. I don't live in Kids Grove, but I would travel from out of the area. So I think not only is it going to be a fabulous resource for the community, but also the local community, but also people around the peripherals will also travel in, and hopefully we'll have a knock-on effect with health and well-being, because it's such a great place.
Thank you, Jill, and agree with everything that's been said. And probably my final word before we move the recommendations is to thank obviously officers of the council, past and present, who've worked on this project. And there's been some difficult days getting to where we got, but in the end we did. And I'd also like to pay tribute to the community group, volunteers, have got full-time jobs besides, that have put, time into this project, and are now running the facility and providing, as far as I can see by all accounts, an excellent service to the people of Kids Grove. And, a membership is increasing, and activities at the centre are vibrant, and long may that continue. Recommendations before us there, all agreed? Thank you. Next item, item 8 is the UK Shared Prosperity Fund Contract Award. I mean, there's been a lot of good items on this agenda, hasn't there? Whether it's the advances we've made on Wally's Quarry, whether it's the starting to deliver town deals, delivering Kids Grove Sports Centre. This is another, a government investment in Newcastle that was outlined in April as part of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. And we've put together a number of bids that relate to the main investment priorities, which are communities in place, supporting local businesses, and people and skills. And of course, the next step now is to ensure we start to deliver on those. So the recommendations are that we, with the Director of Development and Growth and myself, that we enter into grant funding arrangements with the government as required for the investment plan, that we make amendments to the projects as required to meet the intervention targets in line with the government feedback on the investment plan, and that then we award contracts or funding agreements to deliver those projects to meet the interventions called for, and that Cabinet receive a update on delivering the investment plan at irregular intervals. And we do have some really good schemes and proposals that are in there that complement all the other stuff we've been talking about today on the agenda. And I think through this fund, which is a different sort of pot of money, over £4 million, but more on the revenue side of spend, we can really make the differences which in those areas which are the investment funds priorities. I think also, a lot changing nationally, and I think we've had no indication that this money is changing or anything like that. But I think it's really important that when this money gets to Newcastle, we do spend it and get the maximum benefit for our residents in those areas which this fund is directed to. So I'll open it up for any comments and questions. First of all, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. Now, more good news. It's a good news cabinet. It's all very long. £4.8 million coming into the borough, on top of the 52 million we've already had. I mean, it's just what's not to like about it. It'll be very interesting to see when the schemes come forward, what sort of things we're looking at. This is very much laying the foundations for that, isn't it, this report? But no, again, all good news. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this one? I think this is a kicking this one off, isn't it, towards an action to start to implement some of this. And we set up a board, didn't we, very quickly, because the government wanted us to do. We asked for bids from across the various sectors in Newcastle, and we got a lot of them. And we're now working up those detailed bids, which we can put into the government based on those priorities that mirror those priorities the government has given us. And I think, as detailed under 3, there's more detail on how the projects will fit under there, and the outcomes which we'll get from them. And I think they do quite clearly back the Future High Streets Fund investment, the town deal investment, and the other investment we've had, and also the council's priorities as per the council plan, which we agreed at last cabinet. So I've read the recommendations out, of course. All agreed? Thank you. Item 9 is the forward plan, which is attached on page, when I get there, page 47. We'll go through that page by page. We've got the first pages relating to the items that have come to cabinet today. Then we have a November cabinet, which goes on to page 49. And then we have the December cabinet. As you can see, there are a lot of work on the town deals and future high street funds, and also the budget as we move towards budget setting next February. Do we agree the forward plan? Thank you. Item 10 is urgent business. I haven't received any urgent business as set out. Item 11 is disclosure of exempt information. We don't have any of that. The last item is about councillors and members of the public speaking at Cabinet. We had a couple of those earlier. No requests from members of the public, so I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.